Good day everyone, I am Aiden Amanta together with my co-reporter Julian Estrebo, and we are tasked to report the Section 3, the development of tools for classroom-based assessment. And under the Section 3, it is the Chapter 7, Planning the Test. So, as we all know, testing is an important part of the teaching learning process because it helps us to assess our student learning in attitudes, intellect, achievement, and to identify the improvement of the students and also their lackings. And in terms of capabilities, it also provides our students with feedback, which will certainly lead them to the improvements. And this can also lead the parents to guide their students' learning. So as a teacher also, or as an educator, we need to make sure that the test is always aligned with the curriculum. Because if the test did not align the curriculum, it will cause error. Then the learning objectives is equal to the learning outcomes. That's why we need to use the different variety of test items format to assess the different types of learning. So in this chapter, intends to assist us and the teachers in planning for the development of classroom-based tests to ensure their validity for measuring students' achievement. So when we talk about testing, so the test will guide us or help us in order for us to know or to improve the capabilities of a student. And it will provide guidance on specifying the purpose of the test from the very outset, identifying what essential learning outcomes to be measured, and preparing a test blueprint that will guide the construction of items. So when we talk about specifying the purpose of the test from the very outset, it is under in DepEd Order 73 Series 2012. It is the guidelines and the assessment and rating of learning outcomes under the K-12 basic education curriculum. In her, you are going to see the guidelines and assessment that then becomes a quality assurance tool for tracking students' progress and attaining the curriculum standards in terms of content and performance. In identifying what essential learning outcomes to be measured is we need to identify the purpose of the test in order to seek what the learners know and in order to address the specific learning problems, or in order to detect difficulty in terms of misconception and areas of functions. So to seek what the learners know, pwedeng summative, pwedeng formative. And to address specific learning problems, ito yung diagnostic or kinakailangan na i-diagnose yung mga problema. And in preparing a test blueprint that will guide the construction of items, we need to determine the learning outcome to be assessed. Everything starts with our objective statement. So kapag hindi specific or confusing yung objective statement natin, lahat ay maguguluhan hanggang sa dulo. So at the end of Chapter 7, students are expected to prepare a table of specification for a classroom test. Then the first is the overall test development process. So the process of test construction for classroom testing applies the same initial steps in the construction of any instrument designed to measure psychological construct. Pag sinabi natin psychological construct, ito yung paano natin malaman kung ano talaga ang capability ng isang bata, or kung ano ang kaya ng isang bata, or kung ano ang kaya niyang masagutan sa mga question. So there in figure 7.1, it illustrates the common steps shared by various authorities. So these are the planning phase, item construction phase, and review phase. When they talk about planning phase, it is where the purpose of the test is identified, learning outcomes to be assessed are clearly specified, and lastly, a table of specification is prepared to guide the item construction. In planning phase, we need to have a plan, we need to create a blueprint, and we need to know the purpose, why we are assessing, and we need to identify the purpose that we need to, so that in order for us to identify the purpose, we need to go back to our objectives so that we will base everything on the objectives. And in item construction phase, it is where test items are constructed following the appropriate item format for the specified learning outcomes for instruction. Dito naman, when you have the blueprint, kapag meron ka ng blueprint, ito na yung magsusulat ka ng items, and after every lesson, you need to prepare a set of questions. You need to prepare a set of questions. Then you need to find a question, especially yung multiple choice, na matcha-challenge talaga yung critical thinking ng isang bata. And in review phase, it is where items are examined by the teacher on his or her peers prior to administration based on judgment of their alignment to content and behavior components of the instructional competencies, and after administration based on the analysis of students' performance in each item. So, dito sa review phase, dito natin malalaman kung kinakailangan nating i-review or revise yung test, so that or we need to go back to the principle, and this one is reviewing. So we need to review the test or the questionnaire na ginawa natin. And the first item of our test paper should be the easiest one para ma-motivate yung bata, para mas ma-motivate yung isang bata na mo-take talaga sa isang test. So, as we can see in figure 7.1, test development process of 4 classroom tests, it is first to identify the purpose of test, second, to specify learning outcomes to be assessed, third, to prepare test specifications, and fourth, construct pool of items, and lastly, review and revise items. Ito na yung sinasabi ko na kinakailangan nating i-review yung test na ginawa natin. Yung first, second, and third, yung identify purpose of test, specify learning outcomes to be assessed, and prepare test specification, it is part of the planning phase. While yung construct pool of items and ito yung item construction phase. And yung review and revise items naman, ito yung review phase. In identifying purpose test, so the testing as an assessment mechanism aims to gather valid and reliable information useful for both learners and teachers for formative as well as summative purposes. Ito yung sinabi ko kanina na we need to identify the purpose of the test in order to seek what the learners know, and in order to address specific learning problems, and in order to detect difficulty in terms of misconceptions and areas of functions. Ito yung sinasabi ko na to seek the learners know, pwedeng summative, pwedeng formative. And to address specific learning problems, kinakailangan mong i-diagnose yung mga problema. At yung i-detect naman, there are the possible processes in conducting examination. And this is where the teacher will identify after the test, yung list na na-learn. So, after the test, dun mo makikita kung saan magaling ang isang bata, or kung saan niya talaga natutunan yung mga tiniteach ng isang teacher. For example, this one. These choices, as we can see, 9/12 minus the 2/4. As we can see, these choices A, B, C, and D, 7/8, 3/12, 4/12, and 6/12. As we can see, these choices is a perfect choices. Pag sinolve mo yan, tapos di ka marunong mag-solve ng fraction, ay possibility na lalagyan mo ng denominator 12 minus 4 is equal to 8. Or sinasabi ko nga na kapag di mo alam yung fraction, may possibility na lalagyan mo ng denominator 12, yung denominator 12 minus 4 is equal to 8. So, pipiliin mo yung A. So, which is error, which is mali. So, so it will become error in getting difference in both numerator and denominator. So, kaya nga, ang example ito is the very perfect choice because dito ma-challenge ang isang bata kung paano niya ma-solve ang isang problem. So kapag mali yung sinagot ng isang bata, diyan mo malalaman kinakailangan pa talagang pagtuunan ng pansin yung critical thinking o yung pag-solve ng isang bata sa problem na ginawa mo. So next is specifying learning outcomes. In identifying purpose of the test, yun yung doon na-motivate ang mga bata na masasabi nila nga, I need to pass the test, I need to pass this course, I need to get higher grades. While in specifying learning outcomes, dito mo makikita yung DepEd Order 73 Series 2012. In here, you are going to see the guidelines and assessment, which is the guidelines on assessment and rating of learning outcomes under the K-12 basic education curriculum. So this assessment becomes a quality assurance tool for tracking students' progress in attaining the curriculum standard in terms of content and performance. That's why the summative test and curriculum test should be accomplished of the learning outcomes in order to ensure that they truthfully and really quantify the intended and measure the critical thinking of a child or a student. Next is preparing the blueprint. So, whatever the purpose of the test may be, a teacher must determine appropriately the learning outcomes to be assessed and how they will be assessed. So, sa sinabi ko nga kanina, we need to determine the learning outcome to be assessed. And everything starts with our objective statement. Kapag yung objective statement natin ay hindi specific or confusing siya, yung objective statement mo lahat ay maguguluhan hanggang sa dulo. It will cause error. So hindi natin siya maintindihan. So when you do your assessment ang focus lang natin ay yung kinakailangan nating ma-identify yung objectives na hindi natin na-meet. Then we must make sure that classroom tests represent the stated learning outcomes to be assessed. So in preparing the blueprint, we need to remember the trilogy, the curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So the curriculum dictates the instructional as well as the assessment strategies to be applied, while the assessment informs both the curriculum and instruction what decision to make to improve the learning. So the teaching and learning methods which the teachers use to achieve each of the learning outcomes, it will cause the students to know exactly why they are being asked to engage in certain teaching. So also the assessment, it informs us the both curriculum instruction, right? So the assessment, it aims to improve the student's learning by measuring the learning outcomes. They have the achievements, then feedback will given, so feedback will given so that the students will know what to do to get the higher grades. Kaya nga nabibigay yung mga feedback sa mga estudyante para malaman nila kung paano nila kung ano ang mga dapat nilang gawin para maabot nila yung mga higher grades na gusto nila. So therefore, we must realize that planning phase helps the teacher make genuine connection and trilogy among the curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Through planning phase, it will guide the teacher kung ano ang dapat nilang gawin para malaman nila kung saan na ang progress ng isang bata. So, to assure the preparation of a good test, A test blueprint is commonly set up in a two-way, which is yung tinatawag nating TOS or Table of Specification. Table of Specification. That basically spell out what will be tested and how will be tested. So TOS will be explained by my co-reporter, Julian Estrebo.
So for the continuation of the chapter 7, we're now down to preparing a test blueprint or preparing a table of specification. So as what Eileen Amante discussed lately, that a classroom test provide school teacher and essential information used on how to make decision about instruction and students' grade. So in this matter, as the TOS or the table of specification play an important role in making a valid and reliable test question. So now let us first define what is TOS. So according to the definition, a TOS is a test blueprint that outlines what will be tested, the content, and how it will be tested, the format. So it ensures that the test aligns with the curriculum and the learning objectives. And the last one, it helps in creating a balanced assessment, specifying the number of items or points for each objective or skill. So whatever the purpose of the test, teacher must know and determine appropriately the learning outcome to be assessed and how it will be assessed. And this is the what we so called the what and how it will be at the what and how learning outcome to be assessed. So, in preparing a test blueprint to assure a preparation of a good test, a test blueprint is commonly set up in a two-way table of specification. But actually, there are different types of table of specification that I am going to discuss later on that basically spell out the what will be tested or the content, the subject matter, and the objective or skill that we are going to measure and the how it will be tested, the format, the format, the process, and the method of testing that we are going to use in an assessment. So kung ang mga engineer kinaslay blueprint in making or constructing a building, the same as teacher, and we call it uh, the table of specification. So ang table of specification mo yung atong guide and help us kung unsa o gaasa padulong ang atong assessment. So the test blueprint will shows us that the test will cover all the important learning objective in different learning areas and learning content. So it will use a variety of test items to assess the students' learning, and it will assures us that there are important tools for ensuring that tests are fair, comprehensive, and of course aligned with the curriculum. So ang kalamanan naman gud nga mahitabo kay kung unsa nato ang mga sayon nga content, sayon nga uh, topic, dito ra mag-focus ang ato ang test question. So through ni table of specification, there is a fair distribution of test question based on depending on the time, the hour and the day nga atong gitudlo sa mga estudyante. Making a test blueprint, there are some key aspects that covered by ATUS that we should consider. So the first aspect is the content area. So the content area are the subject matter that the test will cover. So ang content area kay mo na siya ang sulod sa assessment na atong i-measure sa mga estudyante. And the second one is the learning outcome. These are the competencies or skills that the students are expected to demonstrate after the assessment. Then the next one is the test format. These are the type of assessment question or test used, whether it is multiple choice, essay, or performance-based task. Then the last one is the item distribution, the number of question or points allocated to each type or skills. So for the different types of table of specification, there are only three types of table of specification. So these are the one-way, two-way, and a three-way table of specification. So for a one-way table of specification, it is a simple grid that focuses on one element, the objective or the skills. So for the one-way table of specification, there are the element that is being measured is the objective and the skills. And for the two-way table of specification, it is a more detailed grid that shows the relationship between two elements such as content and skills or subject matter and the type of test format. And for a three-way table of specification, it is an even more comprehensive that incorporates three elements. So the three elements that is being measured by the three-way table of specification is are the content or the objective, the cognitive level by Bloom's taxonomy, and the percentage rate. And for the content or objective that is being measured by the three-way table of specification, it is a topic or skills that are being assessed. And for the cognitive level, from Bloom's taxonomy, it is the level of thinking is required, whether it is knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, or evaluation. So for the percentage rate, this is how much each section or topic contribute to the overall assessment. So for the one-way table of specification, it is called a one-way grid showing a plan for testing different learning outcome within the same topic area. So a one-way table of specification is often used for skill-oriented subject like language and reading for a classroom formatted test focusing on specific skills. So a one-way table of specification is a table that presents information about a test based on a single element's dimension. So in a context of test construction, these elements is typically either the objective or skills being assessed and the content being covered. So it is a simple grid that shows a plan for testing different learning outcome with the same topic area. So kung baga ang one-way table of specification is there is only one topic area, and within this same topic area, ang way of testing is in different learning outcome. So for example, in a table 7.1, it shows it shows that there is only one topic area which is verb, and within that same topic area which is verb, ang way of testing is within the three different learning outcome, which is identify the statement with errors in the verb, supply the correct verb form in a paragraph, then the next one is prepare news article reporting past school activity. So as you have noticed that identifying the statement with errors in a verb, it needs 10 items because it is only objective test item, and for supplying the correct verb form in a paragraph, it is only needs 10 points because it is also an objective test item. But preparing a news article activity for past school activity, it needs 20 points because it needs an idea, it needs a time to come up with this activity. So a total of 40 items. So according to Macmillan 2007, um, it suggests some rule of thumb in determining how many items are sufficient for a good sampling. A minimum of 10 items is needed to assess each knowledge learning target is a unit, but which should represent a good cross section of difficulty of item. However, if there are more specific learning target to be tested, at least 5 items would be enough for each one to allow for criterion reference interpretation for mastery. 80% correct of item for a competency is an acceptable mastery criterion. So for the next TUS that is being shown in reference in a table 7.2 is the two-way table of specification. So for this table of specification, both elements are being shown. So kung ganiha sa one-way table of specification, isa siya ka element ang makita, which is ang objective or skills nga imong i-measure sa i-measure sa assessment sa mga estudyante. So this time two. So for example, the what, the subject matter, and the skills given, and for the how, a type of test format, and on how the test should be administered. So this instantiate a two-way grid or three-way grid depending on the elements displayed. So column 1 shows the topic or content, column 2 the target instructional outcome or the skills, and column 3 the item format recommended for use. So as you can see in this table, so column 1 shows the column 1 shows the content. So under the content there is two, the verb usage and the communicative writing. So sa under sa sa verb usage there are two outcome or skills nga under nga imong i-measure sa assessment. So these are identifying the statement with errors in a verb, supply the correct form in a paragraph. Then the third one is prepare a news article reporting a past school activity. So it is under the communicative writing. So so for the test format, two general types can be utilized: objective test item and non-objective or performance task. So they are called objective item because they have a single right or best answer for every item based on a key to correction prepared in advance. So it is very understandable no nga ang objective test item muna na siya ang mga question o sa kabok answer. It is also based on fact. So isa ra siya kabok answer like let me say for example mga multiple choice, mga true or false, o mga fill in the blank or matching type. So mga kana nga mga question isa ra ka siya kabuk answer, and that questions are under sa objective item test. So for the performance task, or on the other hand, requires learners to construct or create responses written or oral. So for example, sa written or oral, write a letter. O sa perform a task, example is design an experiment. So they are also referred to as non-objective items since scoring relies on character judgment guided by the rubrics or standard for scoring prepared ahead. So on performance side, it is also understandable that kanang nasa ginasulod nga guidance or kanang criteria or rubrics, standard for scoring. So, a classroom test can consist purely of objective items, but in addition of performance tasks, provide a better profile for learners' ability across instructional outcomes. So, as a future educator or a future teacher, it is very important to consider the use of differentiated instruction. So, when we say differentiated instruction, it is a teaching approach that tailors to meet the needs of all students by acknowledging their varying backgrounds, readiness level, interests, and learning style. So, di ba sa classroom kay diverse learners needed. May mga fast learner ug needed kay mga slow learners. We should consider their backgrounds, readiness level, and interest learning style sa atuang assessment. So for this table, there is also a number of item points allocated to each outcome or skills. So for outcome number 1, so since it is objective item test, it only requires 10 item allocated to this outcome. Then outcome number 2, since it is also an objective, it is direct supplying the correct verb form in a paragraph. It is also at 10 items. So then the third outcome, 20 points, because it is performance based, so it needs time. It needs time, it needs a lot of preparation, so it is 20 points, so a total of 40 points. So the next table of specification that is being shown in the reference is the expanded table of specification. So this table of specification are more traditional than a one-way or two-way table of specification, because this table of specification it provide for test developer or teachers and ensure that the test includes a variety of cognitive levels, such as example that is being provided in the table 7.3. So it can also be used to ensure that the test item are aligned with the specific keywords or phrases. So for the reference, we have here the subject area, the outcome or skills, and then the objective, which includes the alternate form and the gap filling. And for the performance task, it is a product assessment. So for letter A, the verb usage. So first, the students needed to identify the statement with errors in a verb use, and it is administered, or they are required to answer it in an alternate form that has 10 item equivalent to 25%. So the second is to supply the correct verb formation in a paragraph, is they need to answer it in a gap filling test type of test, or and has 10 items, and it is also equivalent to 25%. So, and the next letter for letter B of the subject area is the communicative writing. So for the outcome skills is they need to prepare a news article reporting a past school activity. And it is performance based, a product assessment, and it is 20 points with a total items of 40 equivalent to 100%. So for the rubric of grammatical accuracy is 10 points, and clarity of message is 10 points, uh, and be used to evaluate the article. So as per cognitive level, difficulty level, and stimulus type, the cognitive level, we can actually correlate the cognitive level into the outcome number 2, or into the gap filling, because since the outcome 2 is supplying the gap or answering the blank, and for the difficulty level it is in the alternate form, because they are being provided with the two option which they need to analyze if what is the correct answer. And then for the stimulus type is the product assessment or the performance task. So the next table of specification is the table of specification in mathematics. So this table of specification is an example of three-way table of specification. So as we can see, three elements are being presented: the content or the unit, the competencies or the cognitive level, and the weight of every test item that is allocated to every competencies. So here, planning a test like final examination may be presented by showing the different unit of studies. So the different competencies that are being provided here is the comprehending, applying competence, applying concept, and the analysis or the problem solving. So by showing the different units of study that are meant to develop similar recognition outcome as given in a table. So even though there are different competencies, but the points there is, but it really points out on the specific learning, which is to solve uh, mathematical expression. So in different mathematical expression, each unit may be intended to develop a common set of skills like conceptual understanding, computational skills, and the problem solving in mathematics. So item for test 2, item for the first two outcome can be measured using objective item, while problem solving can either be objective or non-objective depending on how it is designed to score. So the first two competencies, which is the comprehending concept and the applying computation, it could be best if it is if we use objective type of test. Then the analysis or the problem solving, it could also be best if we use the subjective type of item. It's very obvious, and we can literally see that ang problem solving is mas lisod siya og trabaho siya compare sa comprehending o computational skills. That's why mas tagani mo og dako nga points ang problem solving kaysa sa comprehending og sa computational skills. Thus, 15 problem can either 45 points if their points are given each. So for example, 2 points for the solution or process and 1 point for the correct answer. So di ba ang math kay mag-solve pa ka. So ang proper allocation sa points kay ang di ba ang process kay tagani mag 2 points, then ang answer is 1 point. So the logic of giving a greater value to higher cognitive level outcome is for the balance of points and competencies, and also for the clarity and specificity of the test blueprint in terms of what the test instructional content and the cognitive ability of the student. Now, finally, we are now down to the very last table of specification, and this is the table of specification for mastery tests and subject-verb agreement. So, this table of specification will cover a wider domain by Meller, Lin, and Grunel of 2009. So, this table of specification for mastery tests and subject-verb agreement is a sort more specific than mathematics table of specification. So this TUS would identify the specific knowledge and skills that a student needs to have in order to be successful on the test. So it would also specify the type of test items that will be used to assess each skills and the number of item for every skills. So this table also shows the test will cover all the important learning like the smallest to the largest detailed and objective related to subject-verb agreement. So this TOS will shows that test will use a variety of test items to assess students' learning. So as the example provided, we have here the subject type and the structural objective covering the use of verb form with singular subject and use correct verb form with plural subject and a number item. So for the first category of the lesson, which is the first person subject, and for instructional objective, particularly on singular subject, is 5 points, and for plural verb form is another 5 points, so a total of 10 points. So for the second person subject verb form with singular subject is 5 points. For the plural verb form is 5 points, then a total of 10 points. So the same as third person subject. It is for for singular verb form 5 points. Then for plural verb form another 5 points. A total of 10 points. So so those are the numbers of items that will be assessed or will be administered to the students in terms of the different categories of teaching. So we as a teacher, we can easily detect the areas of learning of learners gain by mastery and where they need more instruction. So that is the idea of uh, uh, table of specification for verb agreement.